when you hear what Emily just reported, all the concerns, and you hear the Coast Guard talk about a catastrophic event, obviously the thoughts right now are with the families and how to help them going in the days forward. But at some point, I would have to imagine the conversation turns to regulations, this company, and then legal liability.
Yeah, and probably in that order. I mean, this is an unregulated area, that's first thing. But secondly, what happened, right? Getting the debris, doing our research, looking at company records. We need to know what happened, and that comes with the regulatory and safety records, safety inspections, if there were any. That's the first thing. The NTSB will be looking at that, and probably other regulatory agencies, from the Attorney General to DOJ, maybe even the State Department, if you will. But we're going to get a picture of that. But then secondly, these waivers that these individuals sign will drive the contours of any litigation. Now, to some extent, because if there was criminal negligence here or an abundance of negligence that you could not waive in most jurisdictions or under U.S. law, then you can get around those waivers, you can get around assumption of the risk, and you can file a suit on behalf of the
let's stop there, because we've all signed waivers for something or another, right? Whether it's for yourself or for your children or whatever. But you're saying if this was just above and beyond, and we don't know, we'll see what happens here. But that's where it comes into play.
Normally, you cannot waive the unforeseeable, if you will, or the lack of expectation. So if you thought that this was an unsafe device and there was criminal negligence in connection to the inspections and the operations of the submersive, then certainly there are case law in various jurisdictions that say you could overcome that. But here's why that's even more important. Was OceanGate insured, right? Because the money source is going to come from the insurance companies. And I bet you a bottom dollar that the insurance and the cost of insuring such an expedition, if they had insurance, is driving the waiver discussion and whether you can get around it or not.
Is there something comparable in these, like this adventure tourism, you know, these extreme type of tourist things, whether it's going to the top of Everest or the bottom of the ocean or going to space, right? People are paying to go to space right now. Is there a precedent before where there has been a disaster in one of these other extreme tourism cases that would apply here?
Not that I'm aware of, but the disaster that comes to mind was the Lockerbie, the Pan Am Lockerbie disaster, if you will, where the families filed claims not only to international tribunals, but in Lockerbie, Scotland, and the U.S. and other jurisdictions, primarily because that's where many of the victims were from, but also it went down in international waters. And what you do is, as a plaintiff's lawyer, you're trying to find jurisdictions to where you will have your case heard, but then you're trying to find pockets of money, despite the legality of whether you waived or did not waive.
You know, Julia, when you talk about regulations, that's a very political word here in Washington. You sort of get both sides go into their separate camps. But I wonder if we see Congress jump in here, if there's any sort of regulatory action here, like how can you see this potentially moving forward?
Yeah, so I mean, I would love to get Scott's expertise on this because I'm curious to see what Washington and Ottawa, to an extent, what are both of these capitals going to do in terms of how to move forward. Look, I think it's interesting that a few years ago there was a whistleblower from OceanGate who essentially came, forward and said, I don't think this is safe, and there have been some complaints about this and such in the past. So my question is, how does that play in any future litigation? Is that person called and questioned about, whether they were taken seriously?
And does he have a case? Has he or she filed a case against the company? The other thing I want to point out is the CEO, the founder, the main driver, the marketer of OceanGate. He's got some videos out there where he talks about breaking the rules because he's an adventurer and explorer and trying to get this off the ground and kind of getting this done. There'll be a full investigation and could be including criminal charges because people died, depending on what we find out, what the regulators tell us.
Yeah, it's still a lot of questions here going forward. Obviously, all we know, catastrophic event, horrible event, 5 people dead, and the investigation now unfolds and will only pick up from here.
And
as
this
to
could
exactly
take
what
years,
will happen.
by the way.
Yeah,
this isn't next week or next month or next year because of the complexities of what happened trying to reach that determination. But the lawsuits will come soon.